All right, guys, welcome back. Crazy nightcap with the Packers and 49ers. Ravens continue to do what they've been doing all year as they blow out the Texans. Yeah, a lot of things, to be examined with the 49ers. And then, Ravens answered a lot of questions that were circling. And it got a little tight there in the first half, and you were wondering if it was going to be another choke session by them, but they pulled it off. And, before we dive into all this, like and subscribe so we can continue to grow this channel. And, let's get into it. So we'll start with the first game, Texans and Ravens. And, before really anything is said, you got to tip your hat to the Texans. They've had an incredible year. Nobody expected them to win more than 5 games. They were ridiculed for giving up draft capital to move up and get Will Anderson, and then also taking C.J. Stroud because he was tabbed with the typical Ohio State quarterback. He's just good because their system is friendly and, the competition is weak. But, man, they nailed it on both those picks. And you got to be excited for the future if you're a Houston fan or a football fan in general. It's fun to see young talent succeed. I think you could put DeMeco Ryans in the top 10 coach category already. I mean, I know he's young. He's still got a lot to prove. But what he's done as a player, being a leader and Rookie of the Year, Pro Bowler throughout his career at the linebacker position, the quarterback of the defense, stepping into the DC at San Fran, which clearly you can tell they've kind of missed him this year. That defense has not been as stingy as past years with him calling the plays. And he's brought that to Texas. And, I'm stoked for them. And I can only imagine Houston fans are even more elated that he's going to be calling the plays for that defense and leading that team in the next coming years. And they've got the foundation. They really do. They've got studs on defense with Derek Stingley and Christian Harris, who's really come on the last second half of this season. And then also C.J. Stroud, obviously. He's looked like a top 10 quarterback. And there's still a lot to be proven with him. Obviously, it's just his rookie year. But you got to love what you've seen so far. He makes every throw. He already got a playoff win against a very good defense in the Browns. And obviously there's Will Anderson coming off the edge, who set their rookie record with sacks this year and, missed some time due to that ankle injury. So, yeah, hats off to the Texans. Excited for their future. They're going to be a problem. And, on to the Ravens. They've kind of had the stigma that they don't show up in playoff games during Lamar Jackson's tenure there. And for the first half, it got a little bit tight. You're wondering, are the Texans going to carry this momentum that they've had the past couple weeks into this game and pull it off? And at halftime, I don't know what was said in that locker room, or if maybe it took, a couple quarters for them to get their legs back. But they came out and they played the dominant football that they've been known for this year. Lamar Jackson is unstoppable. He's become such a good pocket passer, where when he first started in the league, it was, first read, take off. And he's electric. I mean, nobody's going to fault him for doing that. He's the best running quarterback that we've ever seen. Honestly, he's probably the most elusive player we've ever seen, up there with like Barry Sanders and Walter Payton. You can't tackle him. It's impossible in the open field. You can only hope to corral him and that he goes down on his own. And as you've seen the maturation of him throughout his career, this year he's taken a massive leap towards reading defenses. He tears up zone. And, this is all pretty much without Mark Andrews for the second half of the year that he's really hit his stride. And, looks like he's going to be coming back next week. And now you've seen the development of Isaiah Likely. So now you've got Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, and then obviously you got role players in Odell Beckham, who is capable of taking over a game still, and Nelson Aguilar and Rashawn Bateman. They're nothing to scoff at. And they got a great offensive line. And when you come out in the second half like that and you really play to your potential, it goes to show you that they're just an incredibly well-coached team. And that's not news. You know, John Harbaugh has been a great coach since he took over the Ravens, and it's never really slowed down. That defense it's elite. I mean, the Ravens always have good defenses. It's incredible. It's like in their sleep they can just roll out top 5 defenses. But when they pulled up that stat graphic, I think it was like in the first half, that they lead the league in scoring defense, in sacks, and takeaways. And it is 60 sacks, 31 takeaways, 16.5 points a game. You know, the formula for winning championships doesn't change. We saw it with Washington this year. Dominant run game and, you know, just a stuffer of a defense. And that's what the Ravens have. And you add in, obviously, Lamar Jackson, the X factor that he is. You know, watching them play tonight, obviously I thought I'd be surprised if I didn't see Niners versus Ravens rematch in the Super Bowl. You know, we'll get into the Niners a little later after watching them play. You got to think that the Ravens are going to take it all. I'd be shocked, and really I'm rooting for Josh Allen versus the Ravens, because Josh Allen is just as unstoppable as Lamar Jackson is, and I'd love to see what that Ravens defense does against him, because Josh Allen is a big game player, so you know you're going to get their best effort. They still got to take care of business against the Chiefs. So, yeah, I'm loving what I see from the Ravens right now, and you know they kind of tackled that idea that they don't show up in big games, and they came out and they played an elite second half. And so, I mean, the defense didn't give up a touchdown all game. They only gave up the punt return. Outside of that, and it's not like they were playing a so-so offense. I mean, C.J. Stroud has been lighting it up, and he lit up the Browns, who had I think they were a top 3 defense, and he carved them up. And they shut him down. I mean, there was no yards to be allowed. Their defensive line, you saw them against San Fran, which is when I really started to notice, like, they don't have like a T.J. Watt or Nick Bosa or Micah Parsons, but Jadeveon Clowney has been on a tear this year. And they've just got a lot of consistently good players on that defensive line that cause pressure without blitzing. And then their 2 linebackers are fast. And everybody says, you know, if your linebackers are fast, your defenses are fast, because they patrol the middle of the field. So you can have shutdown corners, but if there's yards to be found in the middle, there's no reason. You know, if you got good outside corners, you're just going to eat up in the middle of the field. And when you've got Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen and Kyle Hamilton patrolling the middle of that field on that defense, yards are tough to come by. And you saw that today, and I expect to continue to see that. I think they got the jitters out in that first half, and next week they kind of found their footing in the second half, and I'd expect them to carry it over into next week. Now on to the Packers and 49ers. And really, the Packers outplayed the Niners this entire game. And if you're a Packers fan, you've got to be, just like if you're a Houston fan, you got to be so stoked for the future. Jordan Love, obviously it's only 1 year, but you got to love what you saw from him. And it wasn't like he was sporadic throughout the year. He started slow, and I think since he's been in the league for 2 years before this, that we didn't want to give him the patience of what you would give a rookie quarterback. But he showed you the progress throughout the year, and it's not like he's throwing to a bunch of veterans. I mean, every receiving threat they have on that team is 2 years or younger. The only veteran on that offensive weapon tree is Aaron Jones, who is so underrated. I mean, you saw him. He borderline took over this game, and if you fed him more, we might be talking about the Packers moving on to the NFC Championship. So you got to be excited if you're a Packers fan, and I'm sure you are. Jordan Love should continue to progress as he did throughout the second half of this season. You saw the receivers all kind of gain some experience as well as Jordan, and Matt LaFleur is just an incredible play caller. And so you got a lot to build on. Got to be stoked. And I think they have a tough decision coming up because their defensive coordinator was on the hot seat all year. He's Matt LaFleur's buddy. And they really stunk it up. But in these past 2 games against the Cowboys and the Niners, they really tightened things up. And it leads to a lot of questions because I think ultimately you still got to move on from him you can't let a couple games cloud the entire evaluation that was this season, where their defense was really their weak point. And it shouldn't be, because, we always give the Packers flack for not taking weapons in the first round on offense, because they're always taking defensive players or offensive linemen, but then their defense doesn't ever seem to show up. And that shouldn't be the case when you're spending that kind of capital on your defense. So I think ultimately, you do really have to be brutally honest if you're Matt LaFleur with your buddy Joe Barry and tell him that, I think we got to go our separate ways. I would expect them to, because if their defense shows up a little bit, I mean, you saw what they did last week and this week. They're in games, and they're going to continue to do so. And so, Packers fans, sorry for your loss, but hold your head up. You've got a lot to be excited for. Now, if you're a Niners fan, a win is a win. And in the playoffs, all that matters is that you get the win. Doesn't matter how you do it, as long as you win. That's all that matters. That is the only goal. Stats don't matter. How pretty it is doesn't matter. It's all about getting that W. And they did just that. But watching that game, I'd be a little concerned. You thought maybe they just need to get their sea legs back, like the Ravens did. They just kind of never did. And I know it was raining, but like Purdy said after the game, this is football. You got to play through these conditions. And they did not look that good. And so I'm a little bit worried. I'm especially worried at, the whole, I don't know, it wouldn't be called a rumor, but Kyle Shanahan does seem to struggle with play calling at times during the playoffs, and I thought that was very much on display here tonight. McCaffrey was carving up that Packers defense, who have one of the worst run defenses in the entire NFL, and you've got the best running back and the best player, really, him and Lamar Jackson. You got the best player at one of the most important spots, despite what people say. It is one of the most important spots. And for some reason, they just did not want to feed him. And you saw the times that it did. He got 2 touchdowns. He was the MVP of that game. And so I really would hope that Kyle Shanahan does a self-examination and decides, we've gotten here because we run the ball better than anybody, and we use that execution to carve up defenses on play action. You just didn't see that tonight. The encouraging note of all that is, though, you came back in the fourth quarter and you finally got a win. When you were trailing, you dropped back in an empty set, and you went down the field and you scored a touchdown to win the game. And Brock Purdy, as shaky as he did look, and he got bailed out by a couple dropped interceptions, the point is they dropped it. Doesn't matter if they were almost caught. Does not matter. It wasn't. And in the fourth quarter, when the game was on the line, in the biggest moment of his career, he took them down and scored the go-ahead touchdown. And really, I think that's the biggest takeaway of this game, is that the Niners finally won a gritty, close fourth quarter game. Because that was their biggest question, really, all years. Can they win when they're trailing in the fourth quarter? Because that's not how they want to play. And they did that tonight against a good young Packers team to move on to the NFC Championship in the rain. So, all the concerns that you'd have for the Niners are warranted. I don't think that they look like the elite team that they did during their, prime of the season when they were just blowing everybody out. I'm not saying they can't get back to it. Obviously they can. Sometimes you just kind of have a shaky game. You don't want to have them in the playoffs, but if you do and you win, it's you'll take it. I'd expect them to come out a little bit more buttoned up next week against either the Bucs or the Lions. They get another shot there at Levi Stadium. And I still think they're on track to go to the Super Bowl. I hope they hit their stride next week, because when that team is firing on all cylinders, they are unstoppable. And really the only team that can stop them is the Ravens, which they did. And I think a rematch of the Ravens and Niners would be so enticing, because you see this a lot with teams that play the Ravens. they don't know how to guard Lamar Jackson because there's no way you can scout for him in practice. I mean, you could put Michael Vick in his prime on your practice squad, and it still doesn't mimic exactly what Lamar does. He's so good at making you miss and keeping on your toes and having your DBs cover for way longer than any defensive coordinator would ever want. But I think that works into the Niners' favor a little bit because it wasn't like they played them in week 3 or 4. I mean, they played them on Christmas Day. Like, that was less than a month ago. So that's still a little bit fresh. And I think that works into the Niners' advantage. Plus, they got their asses whooped. And so now you kind of get a chance at revenge. Obviously, both teams still need to win their next game. I still think we're in line to see that. So, a couple more things to touch on with the Packers. I know Rashawn Gary's up for a contract. I think they definitely need to keep him. And, the trade speculation of if Jair Alexander is going to be here next year, because when he's playing at his fullest potential, he is a shutdown, true number one corner. I don't think you can move on from him. I really don't. I don't think whatever draft capital you would get would replace how big of a piece he is on that defense. Because as much as we talk about, you need speed in the middle of the defense and a pass rusher, nobody's going to ever scoff at having a true shutdown corner on the outside. And so I think that these past couple weeks have kind of put those rumors to bed. It's like whatever is going on there, you got to amend it. And you all got to fight for the common goal to continue to get better and hopefully, bring that Lombardi home. And that's going to be their goal next year. They're playing with house money at this point. They whooped the Cowboys, and they really took it to the Niners, just didn't come out with a win. So I'm stoked if I'm a Packers or Texans fan, and I'm super stoked if I'm a Ravens fan. I'm happy that if I'm a Niners fan, you got the W. Your team didn't play its best football, but they still won, which does go to show you something. It's like, hey, listen, if you don't play your best game and you still beat a really good team in the divisional round, it means you're a good team. And, they got outplayed for 58 minutes, but then they tightened it up in the final 2, and now they're moving on to the NFC Championship game. So, last couple things on the games for tomorrow. You got Bucs and Lions. Really torn on who I think is going to win that game. I think the Bucs are getting a little bit undersold. I think that Lions defense and their secondary is very suspect. Their run defense is incredibly stout. Thing is the Bucs don't really run the ball. They don't like to. They're not good at it. They love dropping back and using the weapons that they have. And that's the Lions' weakness. And on the flip side of the ball, the Lions, Jared Goff really struggles against the blitz. And Todd Bowles is an incredibly tactful mastermind when it comes to blitz packages and disguising where the pressure is going to come from. I still do think the Lions come out and they play sound football and they do get that victory. I think they're just a better team. And I think they've got a little bit more to play for right now. And obviously, take that with a grain of salt because all these teams have a lot to play for. I mean, this is win or go home. You got a Lombardi trophy 2 weeks away. Like, it's not like the Lions are like, oh, we got to win this for the city. The Bucs are thinking the same thing. And so, ultimately, I think that the Lions do come out and they play an incredibly sound and disciplined football game. Incredibly excited. I think it's going to be a thriller. And speaking of thrillers, we got the Chiefs and Bills tomorrow night. Brady Manning, 0.2, Mahomes Allen, the 2 best quarterbacks in the league, really the 2 best players in the league. I think you're going to see the best they have to offer tomorrow. I don't think weather's going to have anything to do with it. It's shown over the past couple weeks. The weather doesn't matter with these 2 quarterbacks. They're going to drop back and they're going to put the team on their back and they're going to do whatever it takes to win the football game. If you're the Bills, you got to win this game. Point blank, period. This is a must-win game for your franchise. You've been banged up. You started off 6-6. You rattled off 6 straight wins now. The time is nigh. It has to happen. Like despite your injuries, Gabe Davis is out, which hurts. Stephon Diggs needs to step up. I'd expect him to get a lot of targets, and I'd expect Snead to travel with him. And if you're the Chiefs, you got to stick to what you've been doing all year, playing great defense. You got to step up in the run game. That's for sure. Chris Jones going to have to bring his A game. And you got to feed Isaiah Pacheco. He's been your best offensive weapon, and you give the ball to him. And if you're the Bills, feed James Cook. Kansas City has yards to be found on their run defense. And you just got to find ways to get him the ball because he is a game changer. And I'd expect that to happen. I'd expect Allen to tote the rock over 10 times for sure. And he's going to break a lot of tackles. He's going to be playing like Superman tomorrow. This is no Clark Kent. This is a Superman day. And both these quarterbacks are going to show why they're getting paid $50 million a year. They're going to put on their best games, and it's going to be an incredible one. My gut says Chiefs. I feel like last week, they beat, Miami Dolphins B team in frigid temperatures. The Bills are a little bit hard to trust right now. They kind of been skating by. They whooped Dallas, but then they barely beat the Chargers. They barely beat the Dolphins. And really, they were never really in threat of losing that game against the Steelers, but they didn't look overly dominating as you would hope for a 7 seed that really didn't even deserve to be in the playoffs. With that said, though, I still just feel like the Bills take it. It feels like it's their time. So, super excited to watch these games. They're going to be exciting and electric. Can't wait to see what the NFC and AFC championship game matchups are. Shit, we got 5 more games of football left. It's crazy. The time has flown. I mean, we're there, baby. This is what we wait all season for. These 4 games next weekend and then the 2 weeks after that. This is what it all builds up to. So, hope we have an amazing couple games tomorrow, a couple final acts, so to speak, of playoff football. We're getting down to the nitty-gritty, and I think you're going to see the best football from all 4 of those teams tomorrow. All right, guys, so with all that being said, we will see you tomorrow. I'll throw out a reaction, and enjoy the games, and hopefully whatever team you're rooting for wins. See you guys.